Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just tackling one legal narrative. We are really analyzing two parallel high-intensity conflicts.
Right.
Both are fought by women lawyers against these entrenched systems of local corruption in the American South. You should think of this as a kind of double feature on how power weaponizes itself in these seemingly quiet, small towns.
That's a crucial distinction. We have two separate, very deep wells of source material here. The first details the just extraordinary experience of Martha Foster in Douglas County, Alabama.
Okay.
And she's fighting this judicial tyranny and the systematic dehumanization of the poor.
And the second one?
The second follows a lawyer named Leah Randall in Hagar County, Arkansas. She returns home only to peel back this, surface of Southern charm and expose a truly horrific local secret.
Our mission today, then, is to pull these narratives apart, find the commonality in the abuse, and really highlight the surprising legal tools and maybe sometimes the morally compromising decisions that these women had to employ just to win. We're looking at the enormous personal price that gets paid to achieve justice when the deck is just completely stacked against you.
Yeah.
From the police to the prosecutor to the judge himself.
It's a profound study in how corruption becomes, institutionalized, how it hides behind legal procedures, and how fighting it demands this incredible sacrifice. Sometimes it's professional ethics, other times it's personal safety.
So where do we start?
We're going right into the deep end with Martha Foster first.
Okay, let's unpack Martha Foster's arrival in Irva, Douglas County, Alabama. Her motivation for taking the public defender job there, it wasn't some career climb, was it?
Yeah.
It was pure, desperate necessity.
Absolutely. It all revolves around her 5-year-old son, Andy.
And his health.
Exactly. Andy required ongoing, very specialized medical treatment and future surgeries for a heart defect. And Martha, she was previously with IN corporate firm, but the sources show her partners made this just calculated, brutal financial maneuver specifically targeting her.
Okay, tell us about that maneuver because it really highlights the insecurity of corporate employment versus the supposed stability of public service.
Well, her previous firm, Simon, Shelton and Associates, they changed their self-insured health program. They switched all employees to these high-deductible policies. We're talking $6,000 for an individual, $12,000 for a family.
Wow.
Yeah. And they drastically cut coverage for out-of-network providers. Now, given Andy's complex needs, this was a clear, targeted hit. It was designed to either push Martha out or, just mitigate the firm's cost exposure to her family's catastrophic health expenses.
So it's just corporate cost-cutting disguised as like a policy reform.
Precisely.
And that's exactly what drove her to Douglas County. She's searching judicial districts, looking for public employment, and she lands on the opening in Irva. And what sealed the deal was what the sources call the Golden Government Package.
That benefits package was Martha's lifeboat. I mean, it wasn't just comprehensive. The sources really emphasize it was identical to the one offered to the district attorney.
So it's about parity.
It's about parity.
Huh.
This wasn't just a good salary. It was stability and security for Andy's health. It was something corporate America had just proven was, entirely conditional. For her, it was essential protection for her family.
So she relocates, she's seeking stability, and she immediately hits a wall of red flags. The previous public offender, a man named Robert Ford, had committed suicide. That's chilling enough on its own, but then the local whispers start.
Yes, the previous PD died suddenly, and Martha learns this almost immediately from this welcome wagon contingent.
Oh, the welcome wagon.
Yeah, a group of junior league casual women, like this one named Diane, who just descend on her with homemade pies and this, aggressive chumminess. It's an immediate signal that this town is too close-knit, too interested in her business.
And the suicide itself is immediately questioned. When Detective Stanley is discussing the scene with Deputy Clark, he doesn't just treat it like a closed case. What does he suggest?
Stanley, in this kind of off-the-cuff remark, he notes there's room for doubt about Ford killing himself. He even suggests that Ford potentially had some help.
Right.
So this gives Martha, the newcomer, an immediate visceral understanding that the legal environment she's just entered is potentially dangerous and corrupt, maybe even deadly.
And beyond that background danger, the social dynamics she's encountering are just profoundly strange. It's not just the welcome wagon.
No.
It's the entire local legal establishment. They're all aggressively friendly. Judge Pickens, Betsy the clerk, the bailiff. They repeatedly insist Martha needs coffee.
Constantly.
Often multiple times, sometimes right after she's just had a cup. What is the meaning behind this constant almost overwhelming hospitality.
Well, it creates this illusion of a safe, integrated small town, but the reality is it functions as a kind of observational net.
Hmm.
It's a way of testing the boundaries of the new lawyer, seeing if she can be co-opted, if she can be brought into the fold. And Martha correctly diagnoses this early on. She notes the judge and the prosecutor, Doug Carson, are just entirely too chummy.
And Carson invites her to the Rotary Club, openly stating he wants to butter her up for sweet plea bargains.
Exactly.
It's this total blurring of lines. The legal system isn't separate from the social or the business structure of the town. Her own landlord, Buell Hawley, is the Rotary Sergeant-at-Arms.
Right. Confirming that everyone who holds any power is connected by civic and financial ties. It's a closed system, and that maximizes impunity.
And this leads Martha right to her first clue about how this impunity works on the ground. An old law school friend, Jay Bradshaw, who is incarcerated on a seemingly minor charge.
Yeah, Jay's the one who nicknamed her Jailhouse Lawyer years ago after they were both arrested during a civil rights protest in Selma.
And now he's locked up in Douglas County for a simple failure to appear charge. But what is he racking up that is financially crippling him?
He's accruing a staggeringly high jail board bill.
Oh, board bill.
This is the key piece of the puzzle. Jay is essentially being held hostage by the county because he owes money for his own confinement. He wasn't there for a violent crime. He was there because he missed a payment or a court date, and now he's just drowning in fees for his room and board.
And immediately, Martha finds the system actively preventing her from doing her job. The sources detail how the jail staff, Sherry Grimes, deputy clerk, they just repeatedly deny her access to Jay.
She hits these bureaucratic roadblocks everywhere. Her actual public defender office is empty. It's been sanitized with chlorine bleach, almost as if they were trying to scrub away the previous tenant's presence.
Wow.
She can't even access basic work files because she doesn't have the computer password. The environment isn't just unhelpful, it's actively hostile to the very concept of indigent defense.
It's the moment Martha realizes the true purpose of this board bill system. It's not about recovering costs. It's an institutionalized debtor's prison designed to keep the poor locked up, regardless of legal precedent.
Precisely. It turns the legal process into a profit center for the county while penalizing poverty. The source material notes Martha immediately resolves to launch legal research on this issue. She's citing concerns about the Equal Protection Clause. She knows the system is rotten to its core, and she knows it's illegal.
And this research, it leads her to the docket and the case that fundamentally changes everything for Douglas County, the tragic case of Abby Zimmerman.
Abby Zimmerman was charged with trivial shoplifting. We're talking L'Oreal, cosmetics, and crackers.
So, minor offenses.
Minor offenses driven by poverty, yet the consequences were immediately fatal. Prosecutor Doug Carson denied Abby a public defender. He claimed she wasn't entitled to one for petty theft, even though the potential for incarceration existed.
And then Judge Pickens steps in, demonstrating his terrifying judicial power. He incarcerates Abby for direct contempt under Rule 33. What specific justification did he use for this extreme measure against a shoplifter?
The sources are very clear on this. Her bad attitude.
Her attitude.
Her attitude. This is an immediate, glaring red flag. Pickens used the immense power of judicial contempt, a tool that's meant for maintaining order in the courtroom, as a weapon of personal punishment against a poor, vulnerable defendant who simply frustrated him. He wasn't enforcing the law. He was enforcing his ego.
And the outcome of this arrogance is just horrifying. Abby's sister, Molly Zimmerman, shows up at Martha's office with the news.
Yeah.
Abby died in custody, a death resulting from the combined effect of the contempt charge, the denial of counsel, and the jail holding her for that inevitable board bill.
And this is the moment the narrative shifts from systemic abuse to, outright criminality and cover-up. Molly reveals the shocking details of how the county handled Abby's remains. Douglas County immediately cremated Abby's body for indigent burial, citing an Alabama code, Section 38-82.
And why is that specific detail, the cremation, so critical to understanding the corruption here?
Because it was done before the family could arrange a funeral, or, more importantly, before an independent autopsy could be performed.
So they destroyed the evidence.
The cremation destroyed all physical evidence. If Abby died from injuries sustained in that jail, maybe from neglect, or maybe from the restraint chair that Martha would later encounter, that evidence was literally turned to ash. Martha realizes, and I'm quoting here, "Our evidence had been reduced to ash."
It was a calculated legal maneuver, using a state code intended for charity to obscure a potential crime.
An abuse of legal procedure designed to prevent accountability. Martha knows she is now fighting people who are willing to destroy evidence and implicitly capable of murder.
Which brings us right into part 2, the inevitable judicial retaliation against Martha herself. She filed a motion contesting the legality of the board bills and their threat of jail time for indigent defendants.
And Judge Pickens reacts exactly as a petty tyrant would. He doesn't engage legally, he retaliates personally. He finds Martha herself in contempt, not for her arguments, but for daring to question the jail access procedures and, more importantly, for raising the specter of Abby Zimmerman's death.
But Martha doesn't just accept this. She uses this moment in court, right before Pickens sentences her, to give him a precise surgical legal lesson. She cites Alabama Rule 26.1m. Explain what that rule specifically states and why it was so incendiary to Pickens.
Okay, so Rule 26.1 explicitly states that an indigent defendant shall not be incarcerated for their inability to pay a fine, court costs, or restitution.
She's calling him out.
She was essentially calling Pickens out on his core illegal revenue stream the board bills in open court. But she didn't stop there.
No, she leveled up, invoking the constitutional protection.
She invokes the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, citing the landmark 1970 Supreme Court case, Tate v. Short.
Right.
This case established a crucial precedent. States cannot allow people with money to pay a fine and walk free while simultaneously jailing penniless people simply because they cannot afford to pay that same fine. It defined incarceration solely based on poverty as a denial of equal protection.
So, Martha is standing there, a newcomer, telling the most powerful man in the county that his entire system is unconstitutional, citing half a century of Supreme Court precedent. How did Pickens respond to being confronted with the actual law he was supposed to uphold?
The sources describe a visible physical reaction. Pickens went scarlet and then deep crimson. His response wasn't a rebuttal, it was just raw, uncontrolled rage. He immediately sentenced her to jail for contempt, proving her point about his arbitrary power right there in the courtroom.
She gets processed by Sherry Grimes, the jail officer who was previously offering her coffee, who now gleefully labels her a genuine jailhouse lawyer.
Yeah.
That transition from professional courtesy to hostile incarceration must have been dizzying.
It was designed to be humiliating. And the situation escalates dramatically from humiliation to actual torture when Martha is moved from the general women's pod to the discipline room.
For the use of the restraint chair.
For the use of the restraint chair.
And this chair is later known as the Pickens chair. This isn't just confinement. This is a form of institutionalized abuse. What was her experience in that chair?
Martha, using her legal training even while being abused, she meticulously documents her confinement. She calculates the exact time, 143 minutes, from 1:57 p.m. to 4:01 p.m.
Wow.
She describes the intense physical suffering, her hands cuffed, leading to severe muscle cramps and Charlie horses. This isolation and pain were clearly intended to break her spirit and force compliance.
And while she's suffering, she notices a critical detail that becomes evidence later on, the chair observation record log.
Yes. She sees the log, which is supposed to track the health and safety of the person restrained, and she notes Sherry Grimes filling in the entry for 4:21 p.m. and falsely marking it OK, SG.
Okay, SG.
Right? Suggesting Martha was fine upon release, which directly contradicts the horrific state she was in. This minor piece of bureaucratic lying later helps expose the routine nature of the abuse.
And the account of her needing to use the bathroom perfectly encapsulates the depravity of Sherry Grimes. This wasn't neglect, it was calculated cruelty.
Oh, absolutely. When Martha asks for a break to use the restroom, Grimes refuses. Instead, she forces water down Martha's throat so fast that Martha chokes, vomits onto her orange scrubs, and onto the floor.
A floor that she realizes is already
Covered in urine. And Grimes uses this moment of extreme vulnerability and filth to deliver these cutting, derogatory comments, just ensuring Martha feels utterly dehumanized.
The physical abuse is terrible, but the psychological assault that reaches its peak while she is still restrained. Judge Pickens weaponizes the one thing she cares about most, her son, Andy.
This is the ultimate betrayal of trust. While Martha is confined, Pickens uses his judicial power to have Andy removed from daycare.
Oh my God.
And placed with Sidney Hancock, one of the original Welcome Wagon members. And Doug Carson, the prosecutor, acts as Pickens' messenger, delivering the unambiguous blackmail.
Which is what?
Martha's release is explicitly conditional on her withdrawal of the motion against the board bills.
That is leveraging a child's safety and medical well-being to subvert constitutional law. It shows the terrifying scope of Pickens' local power. The ability to just snatch a child without any statutory authority or due process.
So Martha, desperate to protect Andy, is forced to comply. Upon her release, she signs a liability waiver agreeing not to sue the county. But her internal dialogue is the first sign of her resolve. She thinks, this will never hold up. See you in court, Douglas County.
She lost the battle but secured her freedom and her son, knowing the war was far from over.
Right.
And the tide finally turns when she files the ethics complaint against Pickens with the Alabama Judicial Inquiry Commission, the JIC. For the listener, what exactly is the JIC, and why was this the precise legal mechanism needed to tackle a powerful, corrupt judge?
Well, the JIC, or Judicial Inquiry Commission, is the state agency tasked with investigating misconduct and disability of Alabama judges. And it's critical because judges, due to their independent power, are often immune to standard criminal investigations or civil lawsuits while they're still on the bench. The JIC has the authority to recommend formal charges to the Court of the Judiciary, which can ultimately remove a judge from office. Martha realized she couldn't beat him in his own courtroom. She had to attack his license to practice law itself.
Yet even with this clear evidence of abuse, the case looks shaky. Why was Martha terrified heading into the hearing?
Because her key witnesses, the ones who could link the jail's procedures directly to Pickens' orders, were backing out. Molly Zimmerman was paralyzed by fear of retaliation after what happened to her sister.
Understandable.
And Opal Ford, the widow of the previous public defender, she cited fear and stage fright. Meanwhile, Pickens has this high-powered legal team led by a lawyer named Emma Hale, who was successfully dismissing Martha's claims as wild allegations. They were arguing the lack of clear jail records proved the restraint never even happened.
So Martha's on the stand. She's describing the 143 minutes of torture, showing the bruises documented by photos. She's fighting alone against the system that almost broke her, and then comes this unexpected, incredible twist.
It's the kind of twist that proves that institutional loyalty only goes so far. Bailiff Harold.
The bailiff.
The bailiff. The man who previously enforced Pickens' rules and even barred Martha from the courtroom, he volunteers to testify.
Why? Why did Harold, someone who's part of the system, break ranks?
Harold's testimony didn't just confirm Pickens' instability, it exposed the systematic nature of the abuse. Harold confirms that Pickens loses his temper and routinely throws people in jail arbitrarily. But then he reveals his own horrific story. He himself was subjected to the restraint chair, the Pickens chair, for 14 to 15 hours overnight.
And the consequences of that confinement were life-altering for him.
He's diabetic. That prolonged, forced immobility in the chair led to an ulcer on his foot that grew so severe it eventually required amputation.
He lost his foot.
Harold literally lost a limb because of Judge Pickens' arbitrary rage and the abuse of that chair. He confirms Martha was also restrained and looked to sight afterward, lending overwhelming credibility to her story.
That personal sacrifice from Harold that provided the clear and convincing evidence needed.
Absolutely. The Court of the Judiciary found Pickens violated Canons 1, 2, and 3 of the judicial ethics. The evidence was overwhelming, and they ordered his removal from the bench. Martha went from being a target of judicial blackmail to successfully dismantling the source of power in Douglas County in less than a year.
That is a definitive victory, and the aftermath solidifies her triumph. She joins a law firm in Montgomery and immediately files a civil rights suit against Pickens, Sherry Grimes, Deputy Clark, and Detective Stanley. And what happens to the physical instrument of his abuse?
Bailiff Harold tells her they are removing the chair permanently. The symbol of Pickens' tyrannical control is gone.
And Martha?
Martha returns to Irva to counsel new indigent clients, bringing them ice water. A small but powerful gesture, acknowledging the denial of dignity she experienced in that jail. She says she's just returning the favor.
Martha Foster's battle was against a closed system, weaponizing legal procedure against the poor. Okay, let's transition now to our second narrative, that of Leah Randall in Bassville, Arkansas, who returns home to face a different, but equally dark, form of corruption.
Leah Randall's story, it starts with a family crisis. She's a high-powered tort defense lawyer from Chicago, accustomed to huge settlements and corporate battles. She returns to Bassville in Hagar County because her father, Walt Randall, is suffering from severe Alzheimer's and dementia.
And his condition has just completely derailed his solo practice.
Financially, it's a total disaster. Accounts are overdrawn, bills are unpaid, and Walt is starting to wander, even taking the car out at night.
And on top of all that emotional and financial strain, Leah is immediately locking horns with the hostile local prosecutor, Shelby Searcy.
Right, who is pressuring Walt to surrender his law license.
Like Douglas County, Irva, Bassville, also exhibits that suffocating small-town interconnectedness. Who makes up this closed circle of power?
Well, you see Danny Minton from the sheriff's office, Sheriff Gilmore himself, the powerful local banker and landlord Hop Cole and his wife Kate, and Dr. Trip Pennington, who's a family friend and a very successful local doctor. This is the inner circle, the people who run the town and know all its secrets.
And amid this family chaos,
Yeah.
Leah takes on the case that will define her time back home. Amber Travis. Amber is 23. She's described as having low education and a childlike demeanor. Her guardians, her cousins Dale and Glenn Maggard, were recently murdered and their farmhouse was burned down.
Yeah, and arson investigators confirmed gasoline was used as an accelerant, so Amber is seeking her inheritance, and Leah has to figure out if Amber is a grieving victim, a suspect, or something else entirely.
When Leah interviews Amber, the signs of trauma are immediate and disturbing. What details does Amber reveal about her life with the Maggards?
Amber claims she was sleeping in the shed when the fire started, but then she drops this devastating line. She lived in a dog cage, in the shed.
In the cage.
In a cage. She also exhibits this intense modesty, refusing clothes that don't cover her completely, and Leah notes visible scars on her body. These details immediately paint a picture of severe, long-term physical and, possibly sexual abuse.
And Leah also connects Amber to a prior incident, right? A mugshot.
Right, a mugshot that shows her arrested for shoplifting a Snickers bar and crackers. It just underscores the desperation and poverty that defines Amber's life.
So Leah realizes she can't just treat this as a standard inheritance or murder case. She has a deeply traumatized, potentially dangerous, but certainly severely abused client. But before she can tackle the murder, she has to secure her own father's legal and financial stability.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to this crucial administrative hurdle obtaining power of attorney, which was incredibly difficult due to Walt's dementia. Why did this process require Dr. Trip Pennington's specific intervention?
Well, obtaining a POA from someone suffering from severe Alzheimer's is legally very complex. You have to prove the person has the mental capacity, even if it's fleetingly, to understand the document they're signing.
And she'd failed before.
Leah and her mother had failed previously because Walt was confused or resistant. Trip Pennington, as a successful local doctor and a longtime family friend, provided the critical neutral authority.
So he wasn't just convincing him as a friend, he was asserting his medical opinion regarding Walt's capacity at that moment.
Exactly. He bridged the gap between medical assessment and legal necessity. Tripp placed the POA on Walt's lap and advised him, as your doctor and your friend, to sign it. This combination of medical authority and trusted relationship was really the only way Leah could gain the legal authority she needed to manage her father's collapse.
With the POA secured, Leah turns her focus fully to Amber. And, suspecting systemic abuse, she requests a full physical, including a pelvic exam. The findings Trip Pennington later shares are evidence not just of abuse, but of systematic, sadistic torture.
The medical evidence is horrific. Tripp details marks circling Amber's neck, strongly suggesting suffocation or strangulation, likely with a cord or a plastic bag. There were scars and injuries confirming severe and sadistic sexual abuse.
But there was more.
Yeah. The finding that reveals the depth of the cruelty was the marks suggesting electrocution electric shock, specifically applied to her genitals.
That level of calculated cruelty, that shifts the case from domestic abuse to something far more sinister.
Yeah.
How does Amber react when she's confronted with this undeniable medical evidence?
Amber confirms the abuse. She admits that Dale Maggard used a cord or a bag to suffocate her and shocked her lady parts. But the detail that blows the case wide open, revealing the organized nature of the crime, is when she says, "Some people like to watch when Dale hurt me."
Wow.
And she believes Dale recorded the abuse on DVDs.
That's the point where Leah realizes she's not dealing with a local murder. She's dealing with a high-level human trafficking and torture ring operating right under the town's nose. What was the immediate fallout after Tripp shared this devastating information?
The fallout was terrifyingly immediate. Trip Pennington, after relaying the findings, he pulls back entirely. He informs Leah that he received a bomb threat targeting his clinic, explicitly linked to the Amber Travis case.
So they know.
The threat proves that the perpetrators of this ring know they are exposed and are willing to use lethal force to silence anyone investigating.
So she loses her star medical witness due to genuine terror. Tripp confirms he signed the waiver allowing Leah to use the medical information, but he refuses to testify, citing the safety of his patients and staff.
So Leah is now fighting this hidden war alone against a hostile prosecutor, and the corruption hits her directly at her office.
It's burglarized.
Her office is burglarized and trashed. Law books are flung, a window is broken. The sources suggest the intruder was looking for something specific, likely files relating to the Maggards' assets, their will, or anything that detailed their financial holdings or the trafficking ring's victims.
Leah gets a critical piece of information from her father's former secretary, Beverly Shirk, who mentions Walt's neatnik tendencies and his specific scent Altoids. What did Beverly reveal about Walt's paranoia?
Beverly revealed a false bottom desk drawer in Walt's office. This drawer smelled faintly of peppermint, Walt's favorite mints. The compartment contained a small brass key and a file that included sentimental items like her parents' marriage certificate. This detail about the hidden drawer and the Altoid scent becomes critical later, linking Walt's paranoia to the Maggards' demise.
But her most important discovery during this investigative period isn't sentimental. It's an institutionalized document of cruelty.
She finds a handwritten contract hidden inside a property abstract in the office. This document, signed right after Amber's mother died, legally bound Amber to Dale Maggard's will in exchange for enduring punishment.
It formalized the abuse.
Yes, it treated Amber not just as a victim, but as a piece of chattel, a sex slave whose continued torture was legally stipulated as the condition for her inheritance.
The discovery of that contract should have been enough to free Amber, but the local system, led by Shelby Searcy, moves immediately against her.
Despite the contract and the medical evidence, Amber is charged with murder, arrested in court, and held without bond. Searcy successfully argues she is a flight risk and a danger, citing a past attempted arson on her apartment and, critically, her lack of stable housing.
And who owned the rental Amber was living in?
Hop Cole, the powerful local banker. This just reinforces the interconnectedness. Hop Cole then attempts to pressure Leah regarding Amber's rental and the suspected arson. Leah realizes the local leaders, the banker, the prosecutor, likely the sheriff, are all intertwined, and they are moving to protect the secret that the Maggards held.
Leah needs the smoking gun, the DVDs Amber mentioned, to prove the trafficking operation and, implicitly, to prove Amber was too terrified to have acted as the primary killer. This takes us into part 4, the final pieces of evidence and the difficult legacy Leah inherits.
Leah returns to the Maggard farm, where only the stone chimney remains standing after the fire. She remembers her father talking about bats emerging from their old chimney, and she has a lawyer's hunch. Where else would a paranoid criminal hide his most damning secrets?
So she inspects the chimney structure amid the debris and finds a loose stone that shifts when she shoves it. Behind it, she discovers a hidden, fireproof combination safe box. This is the evidence Amber told her about.
Adrenaline is high, but the combination lock is unyielding. She tries every logical guess, birthdays, phone numbers, but nothing works. She knows this box contains the key to the entire case, but she can't break the lock herself.
And given the danger, going to the sheriff or the police isn't an option, as they might be implicated. So she takes a massive risk, driving late at night to the house of the only person she can trust who understands the physical threat, Dr. Trip Pennington.
Trick is found in his kitchen, utterly exhausted and terrified after the bomb threat. Leah pleads with him, explaining the contents are the only thing that can save Amber and expose the ring. Tripp, reluctantly but with a sense of moral commitment, he uses a heavy implement to pry open the reinforced fireproof lock.
It's an act of joint defiance against the local power structure.
Yeah, it is.
And the contents confirm the absolute worst.
The safe contains multiple DVDs documenting Amber's torture and sexual abuse, proving Dale Maggard ran a massive, organized human trafficking ring involving local participants.
And the revelation goes even deeper. On one of the videos, they hear a man's voice participating in the torture, a voice Leah believes the sheriff would instantly recognize.
And the sources strongly imply this voice belongs to prosecutor Shelby Searcy, confirming the high level of institutional complicity and explaining his hostility towards Amber and Leah.
So the evidence is secured, confirming Amber's victimization and revealing the ring. But Leah is still left with the mystery. Who actually murdered the Maggards? She returns home and finds the final, most painful piece of evidence in her own father's locked car glove compartment.
She finds a large revolver. It's wrapped not in a towel, but in her mother's monogrammed pillowcase. And the crucial detail that ties everything together. The glove box smells of solvent or WD-40 cleaning fluids. And critically, Altoids.
The scent of her father's secret paranoid hiding place.
Exactly.
Leah has a moment of profound and agonizing clarity. Her father, Walt Randall, the man whose license and honor she was defending, committed a double homicide. She realizes he acted, perhaps in a rare flash of clarity or out of duty, to protect Amber and maybe the community from the monstrous operation the Maggards were running.
And this creates an impossible moral dilemma. The lawyer who just secured undeniable evidence of judicial corruption in one town and high-level trafficking in another now holds the evidence of her father's vigilante justice. She recalls his recent cryptic statements. You have to protect your family, Leah. And sometimes there's no easy choice.
How does Leah, the corporate tort defense lawyer, rationalize protecting a murderer?
She realizes that in this completely corrupted system, filing a police report implicating her demented father would not only destroy him, but might also delay or destroy the investigation into the larger human trafficking ring, which involved the prosecutor and other powerful local figures. She makes the choice to serve a higher moral justice.
What action does she take to protect Walt?
Leah decides to hide the evidence. She takes the revolver and relocates it to the empty locked cabinet behind the family portrait at the office, the one she had opened earlier with the small brass key. He secures the murder weapon, shielding her father from the consequences of his protective action. Accepting the mantle of family protector and advocate, she realizes, I am my father's daughter, understanding the difficult, painful path of duty.
The resolution for Amber Travis is swift and thoroughly deserved. Leah uses the medical evidence from Dr. Pennington with the signed waiver and, more importantly, the horrifying DVDs to expose the human trafficking operation.
And the local authorities are effectively bypassed. The state police and the Human Trafficking Task Force, led by Lieutenant Wilson, take over the investigation. They immediately begin interrogating prosecutors Shelby Searcy and focus on other powerful local leaders, including Hop Cole, the banker. The entire corrupt structure protecting the Maggards begins to crumble.
And Amber experiences a complete transformation.
She goes from living in a dog cage to becoming an expert and advocate for the Arkansas Human Trafficking Task Force. She starts pursuing her GED, gains local notoriety, and the sources even note Hollywood attention for a potential miniseries. She is vindicated and empowered thanks entirely to Leah's tenacity.
And for Leah, the transformation is complete. She sacrifices her highly lucrative Chicago career, installing a permanent sign outside her father's defunct office. Leah Randall, attorney at law.
She accepts the mantle of advocate for the underdog, committing herself to practicing justice in a place where it is desperately needed, inheriting her father's sense of fierce, if morally complicated, duty. She found her purpose by uncovering the most dangerous secrets of her hometown.
If we look at these two incredible narratives side by side, Martha Foster and Leah Randall, we see distinct types of systemic abuse flourishing in these closed, small-town environments.
Martha fought the institutionalization of poverty and judicial tyranny. Her battle required her to master constitutional law, fighting arbitrary power with precedent like Tate v. Short in Ethical Review with the JIC. She achieved justice by forcing the system to eat its own rules, backed by the unexpected testimony of a victim within the system itself, Bailiff Harold.
Leah, on the other hand, she fought a conspiracy hidden beneath a facade of Southern business and charity. Her battle required her to navigate personal tragedy, her father's dementia, and high-stakes violence. She achieved justice by securing undeniable physical evidence, the DVDs, and making an ethical compromise to protect her family, shielding her father from the legal consequences of his protective act.
And both women paid an immense personal cost. Martha endured physical abuse and the terrifying blackmail involving her son. Leah faced hostility, a bomb threat, and the agonizing decision to actively obstruct justice to ensure the greater moral truth, the dismantling of the trafficking ring, was served. Their victories required extraordinary sacrifice.
What's fascinating here is how the source material illustrates that for both women, their training as corporate and tort lawyers proved essential, not despite the shift, but because of it. They were rigorous investigators and they understood leverage.
That's a great point. Martha applied corporate law rigor to civil rights. Leah applied tort investigation rigor to a criminal conspiracy.
And that ability to pivot, to leverage the system's own secrets or even family secrets, is what defines their success. When judicial and social corruption becomes this deeply entrenched, the line between using the law and breaking the rules to serve justice becomes profoundly blurred. So the final provocative thought we're left with is this. When a lawyer is confronted with a system that is engineered for injustice and they realize the institutional players are complicit, what is the higher calling? Is it the justice Martha achieved by forcing the institution to correct itself? Or the justice Leah achieved by choosing to protect the morally righteous act of murder that exposed the absolute darkest secret? In these small-town wars, sometimes the most profound act of justice is the one that requires violating the letter of the law.